All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and financial advisors are the main clients we serve. So my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Dan Traub. Dan, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, it's true. I am incredible. So that's a good start.
That goes without saying.
I've been in this business since 1988, which was an interesting time to get in the business. For those of you who remember the market crash in 87.
Oh, yeah.
I've only ever been on the RIA side. I never was on the broker-dealer side.
Whoa.
I only know half the world, so to speak. And back in 1988, that was not the prevalent model. It's since become, I think, much more recognized and used, but back then it wasn't. I literally joined a mom and pop shop. Mom was a CFP and CPA, and dad was an investment advisor, and I worked with dad. And my goal was to first learn how he did what he did and then figure out how to do it better. Over the years, I did that, I think, and rose to chief investment officer. And the company grew as well, not only in assets, but also people. That changed in around 2002 when I was an owner at that point, part owner at that point. We sold to an accounting firm to be part of them. We joined them. And that was because mom and pop were getting a little older. They were figuring out how to transition their business. And I was and around that time, interestingly enough, my boss came to me and said, you're chief investment officer and you're also servicing more than half our clients. We're growing. You can't do both. So pick one. So I thought about it and I thought, okay, I'll be the vice president of client service. And I remember a very important conversation I had with a good friend of mine after I made the decision, and I was telling him what I decided. And he's a lawyer, and but he's never worked really as a lawyer. He worked in human resources and such for investment companies at the time. And I told him my answer, which I chose to be the vice president of client service. And I said, why are you giving me this? He said, because if you told me that you chose to be chief investment officer, I would have had to find a nice way to tell you made the wrong decision. Why would you do that? He said, because you never want to lose touch with the client. You're not going to forget how to do research, how to do investments. But if you lose touch with the clients and something happens in your life and you move on to this company, you will have lost touch with the clients, and that's really not what you want. So I felt good that I made the right decision. Perhaps should have contacted him before. And that turns out to be very prescient, because a few years later, Pat was looking to cut back his role and was looking for a new president. And there was a search for new president, internal and external, and they offered me the job. But I was not particularly enamored with the particulars of the contract. So I told them that they should probably find somebody else. And at that point, I deciding, what should I do? Can I stay? I could stay there as an employee. They were happy to have me, but I decided at the end of the day that it may be best for me to move on. And that's when I formed Tempo Financial Advisors in 2008. Another interesting time to make a change, because of what the markets were going through at that time with the banking crisis. And, I could tell you people might be worried about making a change like in 1988 or 2008. But, when the markets are in flux like that, it's not actually a bad time, I don't think, because people are wondering, am I doing the right thing? Who's the guy I really trust out there? And so that actually turned out to be fine for me. So I formed Tempo Financial Advisors, and I was literally a one-man shop for the next 16 years, which you can do these days.
Mm-hmm.
But all the time in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what's the end game of this? And so increasingly over time, I was starting to think about what I should do. Should I hire somebody? Should I partner with somebody? Or should I just merge with somebody? And ultimately, that's what I decided to do. And I merged with my current company last year. But it took a long time to find the right person. From the time I first made contact with this company, or they made contact with me, it was a good 15 months before that came to fruition. But now I've been with them about 6 or 7 months, and so far so good.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Lots to dig into there, Dan. Awesome. So, RIA in 1988, were you like the first one?
Well, among the first ones for sure. And in fact, that was one of the attractions to the company that I'm currently at, because the woman who founded this company was among the early fee-only planners in the 80s and 90s as well. And so that was very, very much an attraction to me. But yeah, it wasn't the biggest model back then. And people didn't understand what fee-only was and didn't understand the fiduciary. If they understand it now, but they certainly didn't back then. But I felt like it was the right model. And my dad was a stockbroker in the traditional sense. And I knew that wasn't right for me, became very transactional, and it wasn't the right model for me. And this has worked out well for me.
Wow. You were at least 20, maybe even 30 years, ahead of the curve. That's impressive. How did you know the RIA model was the one to go for?
I would not give myself credit for knowing that. I mean, you're a kid, and your resume's found by a fellow, and he calls you, and it seems like a better job than what I had, and something that I could do. And then I've learned on the job, essentially.
Okay. Wow.
And while I was there, I studied part-time to get my MBA. So I was continuing to get educated, but I never became a CFP, because at my first job and then at Tempo, the company I had for 16 years, I was really focused on investments. That was my gig. I was an investment guy. But when I started Tempo, I realized that I can't leave people out in the cold. They need to know, can they retire? What do they need to do? So I became an e-money user over the last 15 years so that I could help out clients with those kind of decisions as well.
E-money user?
E-money. Yeah.
E-money?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not familiar with that.
E-money is a financial planning software.
Oh, okay.
Money Guide Pro, e-money, those kind of things. And that allows you to do projections of sort of retirement and make assumptions about returns and investments and savings, et cetera, expenses.
Got it. Awesome. So you mentioned, joining a literal mom and pop operation.
Yeah.
It sounded like they had a good partnership going. She was the CPA, he was the CFP.
He was the investment guy.
He was the investment guy. What did you learn from him that sort of paved the way to achieve the incredible success that you've achieved, and how did you improve upon what you learned from him?
Well, so believe it or not, when I first joined him, he had one investment strategy, and it was pure market timing.
Wow.
And so what we learned over the years is it's not good to be a one trick pony. It's not that market timing is bad. I don't do it anymore. I've moved away from that over the last 20 years, certainly the last 16 or so. But we decided you can't, you like anything with investments, putting all your eggs in one basket. Each investment strategies aren't all good in every environment. And I think what people misunderstand about market timing, it wasn't necessarily an attempt to get a 2 times the market return. It was really about risk reduction for us, trying to get a similar return with a lot less risk. And we were pretty successful doing that. But over the years, we moved away from his one strategy and really evolved into multiple strategies over the years. And that was significant because it wasn't right for everybody.
Okay. So he was really good at one strategy. So you got a lot of reps there, and then you realized much as we diversify stocks, you should also diversify services.
Investment approaches. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And you were with them for how long?
20 years.
20 years.
88 to 08. And then I left to form my company.
Okay. And what inspired that? I'm sure they were essentially family at that point. That must have been a tough parting.
It was a little tough. I was the kid that they knew when I was 24. Now I was 44 and more of a seasoned veteran. They had transitioned the company significantly at that point, so it wasn't really just the three of us. By the time we were sold to another company, we already had a dozen or so people, and then now we were part of a much larger firm. So I don't know that my leaving had a major impact on them, other than needing to find somebody to replace me. But yeah, they weren't particularly happy when I left, but it just felt like it wasn't my goal in life to be president of the company. It really wasn't something I ever thought I would do. But it felt a little strange after I turned them down for the role of president that someone else would come in and be president when I had helped the company go from 3 people and $15 million to a dozen people and over $100 million. And so I felt like I should probably move on.
Yeah. You said they were sold to a larger firm?
Well, we were sold. They were looking to transition themselves, and they were older than me, obviously.
Yeah.
And they were looking to transition to the next stage of their lives. And the best solution for them was to partner with or sell to another firm. They still work there, but they much like what I did last year. I'm no longer the spring chicken that I once was with them. And I was looking to find out what's the future for my company. At one point I thought, well, I'll stop taking business. It'll kind of wind down. And then it became obvious that it's not going to wind down. Assets grow, as we know. And someone says, my son needs your help, my daughter, my cousin, I'm not going to say no. So I realized this is not going to wind down of its own. And so I really need to do something. And for me, this actually wasn't a grab as much money as I can play. If I was going to do that, I just would have stayed on my own and just kept all the revenue. But this is more about, you read the stories every year in the paper, in the journals about investment advisors and financial planners, the guy that didn't have anything in place or not the right investment, not the right succession plan in place, and they get hit by the proverbial bus, and all of a sudden their clients are out in the cold and their family gets nothing. And I didn't want to be that person. And I'm not, happily. I want to get hit by a bus. But I also recognize that while I was on my own, the get hit by a bus question, I probably could have gotten more business if I had a team than just being on my own, because there were some people that weren't interested in having a guy that was a solo guy. And that's not the case anymore. But that I'm sure hampered my ability to get some business over the years.
Right. So I'm curious, you were kind of part of the sale. It's like, we have this hotshot guy, he'll probably be president. You may have been a big part of them getting the price and the terms that they wanted for that deal. It sounded like that, you weren't wild about that deal. And I'm sure there's a lot of advisors listening who have that on their radar now or sometime in the future. Could they have done something different that would have made you want to stay?
They certainly could have. They were an accounting firm that thought like accountants and not necessarily like an investment firm. So the terms of the contract were very restrictive if I ever leave, without going into details. And I just thought, this is not done in the field that I'm in. And more than just don't take your clients, it was very restrictive. And well, just to give you another sort of red flag for me, I had been an owner at the company at that point, a minor owner, but they said, would you convert your ownership to equity in the larger firm? And I said, sure, I consider that. And they said, well, you're going to have to sign the shareholder services agreement. And I said, all right, well, let me see it. They said, well, we don't have one. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure what to do with this information because I can't sign something sight unseen. And at that point, I said, I'm not going to convert my equity, essentially. And which turned out to be a good deal, because then I got a nice little payday, and then I was not beholden when I decided to go on my own because I wasn't tied to them in any way. But if they had been a little more, I think more reasonable along the way with some of the things that I'm talking about, I'd probably still be there. I'd probably be my last gig.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And, I'm sure they're lovely people, but that's probably a huge regret of theirs, losing you.
I don't know if they regret it or not. They've gone on. They've actually since sold to somebody else. So, good for them. and they've done well, I
Yeah.
suppose, but it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. So, at that point, that was 2004, or was that 2008?
Well, 2008 is when I finally went out on my own.
I see. I see.
I was with them for 6 years,
Mm-hmm. Got it.
and I wasn't offered the presidency in year one. It was a couple of years down the line when the top decided to take a step back a little bit, and once I didn't really appreciate the contract that they offered, that's when I really decided to move on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it. And 2008, you decide to go out on your own. Was was that always on your radar? Was that sort of like
Well,
I'm just gonna do this?
yeah, not at all. I originally thought I would be joining somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I looked around, because I was still more in the market timing business back then, if you will, I just wanted to be not a market timer, more quant, but much longer term investing oriented. But at the time, I was still doing that kind of thing. And every time I would talk to another advisor, most advisors didn't necessarily know from other than plain vanilla long-term asset allocation. Nothing wrong with that, but they don't really think about anything other than that. And so I kept on feeling like I was trying to fit my square peg into somebody else's round hole. You know what? I think I better make my own square hole to fit my square peg into.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Awesome.
I just moved away from that. Market timing is very difficult. It's you have to make a lot of decisions every day, and you have to be right a lot. And it just wasn't necessarily the way I want to take my my company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds extremely difficult, especially with ironically, so much more information and tools. I feel like that somehow makes it harder.
It's bad or good. It just wasn't going to be what I wanted to do going forward.
Yeah, got it. Awesome. So, a lot of guests we have on who are advisors, they predominantly focus on, client management and client relationships, and they either have someone on their team who manages the investments or they outsource that to another firm. It sounds like you do both. Am I correct in understanding that?
For 16 years, I did it all.
That is
really for 35 years, I did it all because the smaller company, you're doing a bit of everything as well. Up until really when I transitioned away from the chief investment officer role. But I still work closely with one of the bigger strategies that we had at the time, which I still run. But yeah, I mean, you can do it all. I'm here to tell you. But I mean, you outsource compliance and you outsource technology, and my wife is a tremendous marketing expert. And so bringing on outsourced people that aren't employees necessarily, but you definitely can't entirely do it on your own. But in terms of employees, I was the guy, the only guy.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I'm curious, do you have a specific way that you balance your time between client interfacing and investment decisions?
I'm not the kind of guy, I'm not a super sales guy. I'm not the kind of guy to go to a cocktail party and end up with 5 people's cards to call the next day. It's never my strength. Like a lot of, I'm sure the people that you interview, the vast majority of my new business comes from referrals from existing clients, friends, family. I mean, I've had clients that I've had literally for 35 years, and your family becomes your clients, and your clients become your friends and family. I mean, they just become very close people.
Yeah.
And, when people refer someone to me or they say why they like me, they generally say, well, I think you're smart and I think you're trustworthy. And those are the 2 things that I've relied on over the years. It's amazing how often you talk to somebody and says, well, my guy said he was going to do this and he didn't do it. They don't call me back anymore. Well, to me, someone calls you call them back. It's not that complicated, but not everybody seems to do that. And so it's about good client service. How do I split my time between investments and speaking with clients? I probably should have thought about that more over the years. I try to have some kind of communication every quarter. I wrote a quarterly newsletter. I try and meet with clients once a year. and some clients want more, and that's fine. Whatever service model works for each client is okay with me. Some people want the quarterly meeting, some people annual. Some people say, look, when I got something to talk about, I'll let you know. Okay, that's fine too. Whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really sat down with a piece of paper and said, well, 25% is spent doing this and 15% is doing that. One of the things I liked about being on my own is that you're not doing the same thing all the time. You're not always doing investment research. You're not always talking to clients. You're not always doing compliance. You're doing everything. So I liked having a variety of tasks throughout the day and week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it turned out you had a great skill in entrepreneurship as well.
And the funny thing is, I got my MBA from Babson, which is well known for their entrepreneurial program. I never took an entrepreneurial class with them. I was a finance guy.
There you go, man.
I wish I'd taken an entrepreneurship class with them.
Yeah. That's it's interesting you say that. I think most of the guests, we've had well over 100 advisors so far. And most of them became independent entrepreneurs, sort of reluctantly, and then excelled just, out of this universe like yourself. So it's interesting. It seems like the universe knows where you need to go sometimes.
I think you could put me in that camp too. It wasn't necessarily something to do, but it was the way to go. At the end of the day, that was the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. So I love that you work with your wife. Does she head the marketing of the business?
She's my outsource, or she was, not anymore. We have, in my new firm, we have a marketing person who's tremendous. Okay. But she was, she's a great writer, great marketer. So it's funny, people would say, oh, your wife writes a newsletter. I'm like, no, I write the newsletter. She does that. Trust me. She's really a tremendous writer. And so she helped me. The biggest thing she helped me do with my newsletter is make sure I'm writing to my audience, which is my client, and put it in terms that I think they could understand and not try to overwhelm them with a lot of data. So if she read it and said, I don't understand this, being not a financial person, I'd say, okay, I gotta change this so that my reader can understand that. So, she helped me with, lots of little marketing gimmicks. Gimmicks is the wrong term. She's very big on handwritten notes. So write handwritten, birthday card, not just a little email or a pre-printed card, but a handwritten note with something personal on it. And I know I appreciate when I get an actual handwritten note, and it's very powerful. And that is all her, and things like that. From a marketing perspective, I learned from her along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. When you think back to your childhood, young adulthood, it's like, who did you get handwritten notes from? Like your grandparents,
grandma,
parents,
right?
Your close family. So you're like, okay, if my advisor's giving me this handwritten note, they are close family, like just unconsciously.
Well, maybe, sure. I mean, you look at the mail that comes in every day, and Bill, bam, whatever, and then no, that stands out.
Yeah. And remembering their birthday as well, or anniversary or something special like that. Just really.
I have to write them down. My wife has everybody's birthday in her head. I don't know how she does it.
Oh, wow. Okay. She's like, photographic memory over there. I write them in my calendar.
I have to do that. I would never remember. I barely remember my own birthday.
Yeah, right. Oh, shoot. Is that today?
That's pretty much.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. So do you, it sounds like, you've had some very valuable experiences, through a couple different firms. Did you, I understand a lot of your clients come to you through referral. How did you start getting clients to begin with? Was there a specific niche that you focused on? Tell me about getting traction.
With my first firm, we did have a bit of a specialty in medical practices. We did some 401k work, and so I had some knowledge in that. And I used to do more 401k work. I don't really do that anymore. It's pretty much a different animal, but I could. I've chosen not to. So it certainly started with some positions. Um, when I opened the door at Tempo in '08, I set my minimum investment at $500,000. But the bottom line is, if someone was willing to come with me at that point, they were welcome in the door. And over the years, as I've grown, I raised my minimum to $1 million, which is where we are now, my new firm too. So that meshes well. I will say that it's a pretty common refrain you hear when you go to conferences, that you're supposed to spend a lot of time on your bigger clients and even jettison some of your smaller clients. And it's just never seemed the right thing to do to me. If someone was good enough for me, if I was good enough for them in '08, they're good enough for me now. No matter how much money they have, I'm never going to say, sorry, you're no longer my client. They were their family. And so that's important to me. Always, that's, I guess it's an extension of being a fiduciary. Doing the right thing is always more important than, what's right for the business necessarily. And it turns out when you do the right thing, it is right for business. People recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing the right thing, often the best marketing you can do.
It really is. Being trustworthy, doing the right thing, doing what you say you're going to do. All basic things, but they could go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. And stand out, and get clients' attention. So, awesome. So do you still focus on physicians, or is there
Really
new
moved away.
niches? Or?
I mean, certainly physicians are good clients, but
Yeah.
my niche is really in the $1 to $5 million range. My firm here has clients in that range, as well as clients that are much larger. Which has not been my particular background, but certainly good business if you can get it. I'm not going to say if a $20 million client came my way, I'm not going to kick him out. But my niche has really been in the 1 to 5 range.
And it doesn't really matter how they went about accumulating that. I mean, obviously, legal, ethically, but
there are a
doctor,
lot of advisors
lawyer.
focused on airline pilots or whatever, but I've never really had that since the physicians. Other than that, not really focused on one particular industry or type of client, as much as client in this asset range that needs help and wants to know all the things you want to know as a person. When can I retire? How much should I save? How do I know if I have enough for college? All the same questions most people want to know.
Got it. And it's predominantly referral based? No,
our referral based.
Okay.
And, and I've always taken also the consultative approach. So someone comes in, we have an initial conversation. Tell me about yourself. Who are you? Get to learn them. Let them learn about me. And if they say, I'm interested in the guy who's going to pick individual stocks. Well, guess what? That's not me. So maybe I can help you find somebody. Or if I want somebody to build a bond ladder, that's not something I did. And so let's find you somebody else that can do that. But or maybe you don't need me now, or maybe for whatever reason you don't hire me. But feel free to contact me, ask me questions. I'm happy to be a resource for you. I don't charge for any of this, extra stuff. And and sometimes people say, I'm not going to hire today, but they come back a few years later and say, I think, now I'm ready, or now I'm in a position to better value you. And so it's also nice to be able to be honest and say, not everybody's for me, and I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
That as well.
Yeah. That's an important thing to be. All things for all people is nothing for nobody.
Good point.
Awesome. So for this particular type of client, the 1 to 5 million asset range, are there specific issues, problems, interests, topics that they're excited about currently that get their attention, that they want to discuss? Anything like that?
I mean, it's really the stuff that everybody thinks about. Can I retire when I want to retire, and can I live to age 95 and not run out of money? I mean, that's vast majority of what people want to know. And so that's what we deal with.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the favorite things I've done over the years also is I tell people, I strongly encourage them to help their kids retire, start to invest early. It gets a paper route at age 14. Well, you could start a Roth IRA for them at that age. Fund it for them, and it's a big advantage. And I don't charge for the kids' accounts because I love to see the kids learn. I've had a lot of times as the kids get older and turn into young adults, the parents say, "Why don't you talk directly with our kid because they need to learn?" We educate them. What's a stock? What's a bond? Why do you want to invest in one versus the other? How would you think about this money that you need for a house in 5 years versus money that you're going to retire on? And I love having it's probably the favorite thing that I do. And those kids do grow up and sometimes get some decent money and they become clients. But initially, I don't charge for any of that until they have a significant amount of money because I want them to get a head start in life. And it also is a value to parents, see the value that it adds as well. And really, that's probably one of the favorite things that I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Man, I wish I would have started a Roth when I was 14.
Well, they didn't have a Roth back then when you were 14. I don't know.
I don't think they did. Awesome. Dan, well, this has been great. We're coming towards the end of our time. My final question for you is an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like. And that question is, what are you working towards?
So now, really, because I've joined this other company, I have news for you. I won't be working in 20 years.
Hey.
Believe it or not going to happen. So the goal is that now that I'm not just me, is to get people to understand that it's not just me and there's other tremendous people at my company, all of which have fabulous knowledge and they're all bright people. And so introduce my clients over the next few years to some of these people so that when I do decide to either retire or take a step back, whether that's 5, 10, or 15 years from now, they know other people here. There's a base here. I mean, that was the whole reason why I decided to make this move in the first place, is I didn't want to leave for clients out in the cold. And I think right now it's far from that. They're in a really lovely home where they can continue to flourish years after I'm gone. But I have to help them understand that and understand who the people are here.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and just is very much in line with what you've done your entire career to put the client first and just like maintain trust and just take care of clients. So you, like myself, unfortunately, we're not immortal, and someday we will come to the end of the clients. They keep living, their kids keep living, so I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So it's a beautiful thing. Where can my audience find out more about you and everything that you and the team are working on?
My company's name is Montis Financial, Montis. We're in Waltham, Massachusetts. We have a tremendous website. You can see my picture up there as well as all the other partners and employees and a little bit more about what we do. This firm is really one of the things that was attractive, other than really good people that all have the right I think my mindset about clients come first, is their financial planning first. And so, whereas I was more investment and then financial planning, Montis is more upfront with financial planning and investments as part of that. And so that's a really nice change as well for me to be able to be more in that world. And the people here, one of the things that's really nice is that question comes up when you're on your own. You could do some research and maybe you call an expert, but now I just send a Teams message to 15 great advisors and say, who has some knowledge in this particular area, or they do the same to us, and we all share ideas wonderfully, and that all goes to service the clients better.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on my show and share your experience and insights with me and my audience. I am very glad that the universe guided you towards going out on your own and starting your own thing, because I think you are a shining light in the industry, and you make us all look better. So
well, thank you very much.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on growing out there, everybody.